What's up, Guff Gang? Joey Marino here from Grown Up Fantasy Football, here to talk about wide receivers for Week 17. I'm giving you my top 20 wide receivers for the week, plus a few sleepers that I think may hit this week. It's championship week for some of you, and if you want to win your league, listen up. But before we get into today's video, if you'd be so kind, hit that like button down below. And if you're new here, hit subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we post. We got some off-season content coming up. And check us out on Twitter at GrownUpFF, where you can get all of our takes on any breaking fantasy or NFL news. All right, so let's start with some sleepers that I think that may hit. First up, I got Julio Jones. He's against Tampa, who ranks 24th against wide receivers. It's a really good matchup, but the thing about Julio is he's been injured just about all season. Raheem Morris, interim coach of the Falcons, says he may play, and if he does, he's instantly got top 10 potential, so you can't really count Julio out, but I've got him as a sleeper. Additionally, I got Terry McLaurin up against Philly, who ranks 27th against wide receivers. Another great matchup, but another injury. His looks to be a little more serious than Julio's. He's doubtful right now, and as the week will progress, he probably will be a lot less likely to play, but I'm not going to keep him off the list just because he's so good. Plus, Washington is in the playoff hunt, so they might put him on the field. Not sure, but definitely monitor Terry's situation. I also have Juju Smith-Schuster up against Cleveland, who ranks 21st against wide receivers. Decent matchup. It's a weak secondary at Cleveland, and he's had tons of volume, but that's been with Big Ben throwing to him. Roethlisberger's sitting out this week. Looks like Mason Rudolph is going to start. So you don't really know. He always has potential to boom because of the talent, but not really sure. I also have CeeDee Lamb up against the Giants, who rank 12th against wide receivers. Still a decent matchup, and James Bradberry is going to be back for the Giants. He could be on Amari Cooper more, which should open up some lanes for CeeDee Lamb, even Michael Gallup, and the Cowboys have been playing better as of late. I have Cooper Kupp as a sleeper as well against Arizona, who ranks 19th against wide receiver. It's a decent matchup, but no Jared Goff, so you're not really sure what you're going to get with John Wolford, who's coming in. Kupp has been pretty good. He's been really streaky, though, this season, so you can't really count him out, but I'm fading him a tad just because of no Jared Goff. And then lastly, I have Jamison Crowder up against New England, who ranks 8th against the wide receiver. It's not a great matchup, and Sam Darnold has historically never really performed well against Bill Belichick. But Jamison Crowder has been hot lately. He has PPR value. Adam Gase has gotten a little creative using Jamison Crowder. So I'm not really looking at him if I have better options in the championship week, but he's still worth a look. So that's going to do it for the sleepers. Let's get into the top 20 wide receivers. And at number 1, I'm putting Mike Evans against Atlanta, who ranks 29th against wide receiver. It's a great matchup. Tampa already has the playoff spot, but they could be looking just to show off this flashy offense they have. The biggest thing about Mike Evans is red zone opportunity. He has 18 red zone targets on the season. They should be in the red zone a lot against a weak secondary, and he has the ability to do a ton with just a few targets. He exploded last week. He could explode again against Atlanta. Number 2, I've got Adam Thielen against Detroit, who ranks 31st against wide receiver. Terrific matchup, and opportunity is Adam Thielen's middle name. He has a 25% target share, which is astounding, and he also has 18 red zone targets. Adam Thielen should definitely be in your lineup in the championship week. He's got a terrific matchup, and the Vikings have been playing great and through the year. Number 3, I've got A.J. Brown against Houston, who ranks 26th against wide receiver. This is another great matchup, and the Titans should be kind of aggressive, making sure they get a good playoff seed. And the thing about A.J. Brown is he's a yards after the catch machine. He has 380 yards after the catch, which is 10th in the league, and he has a 15.7 yards per catch average, which is 13th in the NFL. A.J. Brown has potential to blow up on any matchup. Yes, he didn't do that well against Green Bay. However, it was a tough matchup, plus they were in the snow. I like A.J. Brown and the rest of the Titans to bounce back this week. All right, at number 4, I've got Calvin Ridley up against the Bucs, who ranked 24th against wide receivers. This is a really good matchup. Tampa Bay's secondary has not been as good lately as it has been in the beginning of the season. And regardless of if Julio is in the lineup or not, Calvin is going to eat. He's been playing like a true wide receiver one all season. Falcons fans, myself included, are getting a taste of what life will be like without Julio, and we like it. He has 1,853 air yards, which is first in the NFL, and his average depth of target is 15 yards. So without Julio, he soaks up even more targets. He has a 24% target share, but it could potentially bump up without Julio in the game. So Calvin Ridley should have a monster week this week. Number 5, I got Justin Jefferson against Detroit. It's another great matchup. I kind of talked about that with Adam Thielen being ranked so high. Justin Jefferson also has a 25% target share, which is pretty scary. He has 16.2 yards per catch, which is huge, and he is not really touchdown dependent. He's blown up in the later half of the season. Justin Jefferson definitely needs to be in your lineup if you want to win your championship. Number 6, I got Allen Robinson, who goes against Green Bay, who ranks 4th against wide receiver. It's not the best matchup for him, but he did have his best fantasy day against them in Week 12, where he scored 23.4 points in half-point PPR leagues. He has one of the safest floors of all wide receivers. He's had double-digit targets in 6 weeks, thanks to Mitch Trubisky being there, and he's only had below 50 yards twice, both before the Week 10 bye. 25% target share. You're not really looking for touchdowns. He only has 6 on the season, but he has so much value in PPR leagues, he definitely needs to be in your lineup regardless of the matchup. Number 7, I got DeAndre Hopkins against the Rams, who's first against wide receivers. Let's face it, Jalen Ramsey has been locked down central all season. And the Rams are probably pretty angry and pretty heated after 2 losses in a row, and one of those being to the Jets. Both these teams are fighting for a playoff spot. Whoever wins is in. The thing is, it's DeAndre Hopkins, and he's a beast, and he always has potential to go off. I don't think he's going to have a monster week this week. However, he did have 15 points against the Rams in half-point PPR leagues in Week 13. I could see him maybe duplicating this performance because the Rams have not been as good lately, but it's still Jalen Ramsey on him. DeAndre Hopkins is a freak, so you got to play him. All right, these next 3 guys all have an asterisk beside them just because of potential rest for these teams. And I'm starting with Davante Adams at number 8 against Chicago, who ranks 6th. It's not a great matchup, but Davante Adams is literally matchup proof. He had 15 points in half-point PPR leagues against Chicago in their last matchup, so it wasn't his best day, but as long as he plays, he's a safe option. Definitely got to play your stud. Number 9, I got Tyreek Hill up against the Chargers, who rank surprisingly 7th against wide receivers in fantasy. It's not a great matchup, but he's also matchup proof. He's had double-digit fantasy points in every game except 2. And Andy Reid is also talking about potentially sitting his starters. So if Tyreek plays and Patrick Mahomes sits, he's probably a low-end wide receiver 1. But even if Tyreek doesn't play, then he's obviously not playing, not getting any points, so don't play him. So definitely monitor his situation as well as Davante Adams. Number 10, I got Stefon Diggs against Miami, who ranks 17th. This is a pretty decent matchup. Miami's been pretty good, and Xavier Howard is playing lights out. But Stefon Diggs is automatic. He probably won you your championship if yours was in Week 16 with a massive 40-point day. And the thing is, the Bills may rest their starters. I think they're fighting for that number 2 seed with Pittsburgh right now in the AFC. So they probably will play. And if Josh Allen sits and Stefon Diggs plays, I think Diggs is a wide receiver 2 with 1 upside. Number 11, I've got Brandin Cooks against Tennessee, who ranks 30th against the wide receiver. This is a great matchup, and he's basically Houston's only real receiving threat. He had a superb game last week in a losing effort, and Deshaun Watson is definitely looking at him with Will Fuller's absence. He doesn't have great numbers on the season, but he has the matchup to do it. He had a 17-point day in half-point PPR leagues in the shootout with Tennessee in Week 6. It could happen again. He could do better because Will Fuller was there. So I like Brandin Cooks a lot this week. Number 12, I got Chris Godwin up against Atlanta, who ranks 29th against wide receivers. It's a good matchup. I kind of talked about Mike Evans. He's my number 1 wide receiver for the week. And he had 11 points in Week 15 shootout with Atlanta. With Godwin, you're kind of looking for yards here. He only has 8 red zone targets on the season, but he's catching 80% of his passes, which is first in the NFL. It's a beatable secondary. Godwin should get his share of the targets. He doesn't have the best target share with Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, and Gronk there, but it's a high-powered offense against a weak secondary. Chris Godwin definitely has wide receiver 1 upside written all over him. Number 13, I got Amari Cooper up against the Giants, who rank 12th against wide receivers. It's a decent matchup. James Bradberry is back. Kind of talked about him with my CeeDee Lamb sleeper take. But James Bradberry can't cover all 3 wide receivers. And Amari Cooper has been very productive, actually, this year. He's probably had the quietest 1,000-yard receiving season probably ever. He's had double-digit points since Week 9, aside from the 1.3 game in half-point leagues against San Francisco in Week 15. But the Cowboys' offense is starting to click now, with Andy Dalton getting more and more comfortable in the system. Ezekiel Elliott's getting back. Tony Pollard's showing out. You've got 3 stud wide receivers right there. And somehow the Cowboys are fighting for their division right now. So they have to get the ball to their playmakers, and Amari Cooper is definitely one of those playmakers. Number 14, I have Marvin Jones against Minnesota, who ranks 25th against wide receivers. This is a good matchup, and we're still not totally sure about Matthew Stafford's, if Matthew Stafford's playing or not. Without Matthew Stafford in, we saw last week, very dangerous to play Marvin Jones. The thing is, they're on a pass-heavy team. They could be playing from behind in this game. I really like Minnesota in this game. So that means there's tons of opportunity. Thinking about Marvin Jones, he has a 72% contested catch rate on 11 targets, which is 6th in the league. So Marvin Jones ain't afraid to mix it up. So if Stafford plays, you really want to look at Marvin Jones this week. Number 15, I got DK Metcalf against San Francisco, who ranks 14th against wide receivers. This is a decent matchup. San Francisco has been playing better, and Seattle's offense has not been playing better. This is a different San Francisco team that we saw in Week 8, where DK had his high of the season of 34 points in half-point PPR leagues. And since Week 10, DK's only had 2 touchdowns. He's going to need more targets to produce a lot more. So take a look at this. In Weeks 1 to 4, he had 6 to 8 targets, and that equaled 12 to 17 points in half-point PPR leagues. Now in Weeks 13 to 16, he had 6 to 8 targets as well, but that ended up in only 8 to 15 points. So he kind of may need a touchdown in one of these games. Plus, there's the opportunity of potentially resting starters. I don't think Pete Carroll will pull Russ and DK and Lockett and all of the starters, but you may want to watch out for that. So monitor DK, and he's still worth a play in your championship league because he could always blow up. Number 16, I got T.Y. Hilton against Jacksonville, who ranks 23rd against wide receivers. This is a great matchup, and after the Colts just lost last week, they're probably going to get aggressive trying to win this game and make sure they get into the playoffs this season. He's kind of had a late season resurgence, T.Y. Hilton. In weeks 12 through 14, he's averaging 20 fantasy points per game in half-point PPR leagues with 4 touchdowns to go along with it. This is an easy matchup, should be good for all Colts players. The only thing you need to worry about is the game script. If the Colts get ahead and Hilton is not one of those early touchdowns, then he could get game scripted out, where Jonathan Taylor could have a massive day against a very beatable Jacksonville defense. Number 17, I got Jarvis Landry against Pittsburgh, who ranks 9th against wide receivers. This is not a good matchup by any stretch of the means. Steelers have a terrific defense, but it's a fight for the AFC North right now, and it should be a good game. The thing is, Jarvis Landry only scored 5 points in their Week 6 matchup, and the Steelers are allowing less than 200 yards per game passing. He should have a role in this offense. I'm not counting on him to have a great day, but if the Steelers try to shut down Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the run game, then Baker Mayfield has to do something in the air, and his first target is going to be Jarvis Landry. Number 18, I got Corey Davis up against Houston, who ranks 26th against wide receivers. This is a very good matchup, and he was out of the last game against Houston, but he should be in line for a good day. He has a 75% catch rate, which is 7th in the league. Corey Davis has kind of come on, and someone had a breakout in year 4 of his time in the league. He has an average, this is what's interesting, he has an average of 4.71 yards of cushion per target. So DBs are underestimating him, which means he could have a blow-up game in a very weak secondary, where Tannehill is definitely looking at Corey Davis this season. Number 19, I have Diontae Johnson against Cleveland, who ranks 21st. This is just a decent matchup. Diontae Johnson has ability, but he's only catching 61% of his passes. He has 126 targets on the season, which ranks 7th in the league, but he has 10 drops on the season, which ranks 1st in the league. So he's kind of killing himself. And the thing is, Big Ben is out this game. Tomlin's already pretty much come out and said that Mason Rudolph is going to get the start. So his fantasy points are probably going to drop. He rebounded against Indianapolis, and he could maybe put it together against a beatable Cleveland secondary, but I'm kind of hoping for a miracle with Mason Rudolph back there and Diontae Johnson being so inconsistent all year. And lastly, I have Marquise Hollywood Brown at number 20 against Cincinnati, who ranks 15th against wide receivers. It's a decent matchup. And in week 5 against Cincinnati, he had 16.8 points in half-point PPR leagues. He's been kind of on a warm streak. I'm not going to say a hot streak because it's Hollywood Brown. From weeks 12 to 16, he's had 12 to 16 fantasy points and 4 touchdowns. He's got a pretty good matchup, and with Lamar playing so hot right now, you may want to look at Hollywood Brown if you have some receivers who may be sitting out this next game, like a Davante Adams, a Stefon Diggs, maybe, or a Tyreek Hill. But that's going to do it for my week 17 wide receivers, my top 20 and a few sleepers in there. As always, leave a comment below if you agree with my list. If you disagree, if you think someone else is going to go off, leave it in the comments below. And if you have any questions about any player that I didn't mention, put them in the comments. I'd love to reply and give you my take on what I think they'll do this season. If you haven't already, go win your championship this week. If you have, congratulations. If you haven't, we'll get them next year. I didn't win mine. But be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to grow up and be sure to get guffed.